Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole podcast. My name is Eric Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole. What's up, y'all? Thanks for tuning in here today. Maybe the title of the podcast is what brought you here. Maybe you're a regular listener. Maybe you're just completely triggered and you just need a reason to just keep that cortisol a-pumping. Whatever brought you here, thanks for listening, because today I'm going to talk about something that's just really making me angry, and that is the attempted silencing of one Alex Jones. For regular listeners who listen to this is a health podcast. If you're new to the podcast, this is a health podcast, but a lot of times I like to mix in these kind of politically charged discussions in there because I do believe there is an intersection between health, definitely health policy, and politics. And really, in an ideal world, politics would not be involved in health because health shouldn't be political, right? Health should not be a political issue. Health is bio-individual. Health is life. Health is, happiness. Health is so many things, right? Health is basically the gauge of you as a being, but it shouldn't be political. There should be no government aspect. There should be no, medium aspect. I don't even know what that means. I'm trying to say the mainstream media. But either way, you can't help it in 2018 to have politics and health tied together because, so much of the health policy is made through government. And what is government's essentially mouthpiece is the media. And I have a lot of issues with the mainstream media. And mostly it's because I feel like I've been lied to. My whole life, I feel like I've been lied to by these mainstream media people. And as I've learned more about media myself, producing podcasts and videos and trying to start businesses and learning about business, I've definitely become, more, independent thinking in the way that I approach issues because I actually have stake in the game. Like I have skin in the game. I have money I'm trying to make. I have a livelihood tied into this. So I think it's important, when an issue like banning Alex Jones for whatever fucking reason, it really does bother me. And here's the thing is I get if you don't see eye to eye with me on politics, it's totally fine. Okay. I don't know where this podcast is going to go, where this episode is going to go. I'm just going to kind of talk my way through this, and I'm going to give you a heads up. I have some far-right leanings. I have some far-left leanings. I have a lot of leanings that you might not agree with, okay? I'm not trying to trigger you. I'm not, recording this so I can make more enemies. I'm not trying to, spend all of my days and nights on Twitter arguing with people who I've never met in my life and who I genuinely really don't care about. But you're listening, so you're going to get my opinion. And like I said, you might not agree with it, but it's just something we're going to have to deal with, okay? And I am actually very disturbed about how Google, Facebook, and YouTube have all banned this guy, Alex Jones, InfoWars, okay? So full transparency. Okay, I personally like Alex Jones. I listen to InfoWars just about every single day, but in full transparency, I also listen to left-leaning outlets as well. I listen to WNYC almost every single day. WNYC is basically like the New York branch of NPR, okay? I've heard more than my fair share of anti-Trump cases. I've heard more than my fair share of, why the right are Nazis, why conservatives are white supremacists, why, Republicans want to kill babies and they don't believe in women's reproductive rights, and, they don't believe in, every Republican is a Nazi. Like, I've heard all this shit, okay? And quite frankly, I don't see how any of that is different from the things that Alex Jones says. So basically, from what I've gathered, in this whole situation? Why did Google, Facebook, and YouTube, and I don't know if there's any others, Apple, right? Yeah, Apple Podcasts. Why did they ban InfoWars? Well, their narrative is that Alex Jones spreads hate speech, specifically in the way that he talks about the Sandy Hook incident, 5 years ago? And so they say because Alex Jones says that Sandy Hook didn't happen, because he says that all the people involved are crisis actors, that this is grounds for basically terminating his YouTube account, terminating his Facebook page, terminating his all of his audio recordings in Apple, I guess, iTunes. And then Google just makes it just completely impossible for him to pop up for any searches that he would pop up in. And the funny thing is so I'm recording this on the day after all of this news came out about how they're banning Alex Jones. And so, of course, I get my initial news, and this is usually with any news story. I get my initial news from, like, my friends on Facebook. Like, I'll go on Facebook, and then all of a sudden everybody's talking about, can you believe Trump said this? Can you believe, this happened? Can you believe that happened? This shooting, that Nazi, this thing, whatever. And the next thing I do, I'll probably listen to it on like WMIC podcast or something like that. But then the next thing I do is I'll go to InfoWars and I'll hear the other side of the story. And why people don't do that as a practice is beyond me. It basically tells me when people don't look at both sides of the story, it's not about a story anymore. It's about coddling. This is what the mainstream media does, okay? It's like, it's like comfort food. Like when everything is going wrong, if you've had a hard day at work, if you're in a relationship that's going south, if you hate your job, if all of your plans are falling apart, whatever it is, whatever's bothering you, you can always turn to comfort food. You could turn to fatty, greasy food. I know comfort food is its own genre of food. A lot of times it's like Southern cooking, but I really look at comfort food as like something for everybody, right? Everybody has their comfort food. For a lot of people, it's pizza or McDonald's or coffee or ice cream or whatever it is, right? And basically, that's what the mainstream media is for people, is it's comfort food. Most people consume media completely unconsciously, right? Like it's just, you come home and you flick on the news, right? You come home after a day of work, you flick on the news. Probably nowadays it's even, the way people consume media is even more different because it's like we're consuming it on our phones, we're consuming it on the go. And, like I experience this myself, like when I'm just sitting there and, I'm like, I have a moment of just quiet and there's nothing happening, I get anxious and I'm like, I go to my phone. And where do I go to my phone? I go open up the news app. I open up Business Insider. I open up Twitter. And the first thing you're going to see 9 times out of 10 on Business Insider is a story about Trump. And this is the comfort food, right? This is what people, I remember I was doing a show one time and some girl comic was like, I need to get home, turn on Rachel Maddow and see what Trump's doing today. And that's what people do. That's the way that they consume Trump and Republican content. They binge on it. It's their comfort food. It's like, they haven't realized their dreams. Their, things in their life are going wrong. They're very unhappy. They've got money issues. But the New York Times is going to publish a new story about something Trump did or said or alleged to do or say, and that's like a hit of dopamine. It's just like the straight up dopamine right in your brain dome. Just dopamine just floating around your brain, just making everything better. Like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God I can read more, tragedy porn. Thank God I can read more about, the war in Syria. Thank God I can read more about kids getting killed in school. Thank God I can read more about devastating weather patterns. It's just one tragedy porn after another, after Trump, after another tragedy, after another stock market market thing. You know, how many times I have to read a report in Business Insider about how all of these stock market quote unquote experts keep predicting this crash that was supposed to happen years ago, has not happened yet. Granted, I don't think it's a good idea for Trump to tie himself to the stock market because the stock market's very unpredictable. It can be manipulated. It can be, completely hijacked, and it can go south real quick. You know, there is the Trump bump, and people have way more money who are in the stock market now than they did 2 years ago. But at the same time, like, that shit's real unpredictable. I digress. Either way, these fucking dopamine hits that people are getting has essentially tied them in to this mainstream media trap where now it's like, yeah, NBC is a trusted voice in journalism. CNN is a trusted voice in journalism. Not because they're giving you the right news, but because you've just let them coddle you and your, unstable emotions for so long. They're kind of like, they're kind of like a nice, warm cup of coffee on a cold day, or hot chocolate, or whatever your fix is, despite what they're saying, right? They'll tell you some shit, but they won't give you the background news. So this is where Alex Jones comes in, because he'll come into the story and he'll say the mainstream media is reporting that Donald Trump called LeBron James the N-word, but he really didn't call him the N-word, so that's just the mainstream media just trying to lie to you again. Or whatever, This is what Alex does, right? He'll go on a long rant about the historical significance of things, right? He'll talk about the historical, context behind a lot of stories. For some reason, I'm just drawing a blank on some good Alex examples. But I mean, this has been playing out for the whole time this Trump-Russia collusion thing's going on. Every time there's like a new quote unquote break in the Trump-Russia collusion scandal, I'll turn on Alex Jones and I'll be like, all right, Alex, what is the story behind this? What's the story behind Paul Manafort? If you just watched the news and that's all you knew about Paul Manafort, you'd be like, what a piece of shit. And I'm not saying that Paul Manafort isn't a piece of shit, but basically what the guy did is he fucking sent money overseas. He hid his taxes. He was a millionaire who probably got, his millions off of shady business dealings, like many people in the mainstream do, right? Look at every banker who liberals, your boy Obama bailed out. Did they get their money from honest, good means? I mean, you have these foreign banks. What is it? U.S. Who's that bank? It starts with like U.S. something or another, but Citibank for sure involved in all of this money laundering, sending money to terrorist groups, sending money to the Mexican drug cartels. I mean, there's a lot of just financial scandals, and you never hear about it, right? And these people, they go to court, they don't get jail time for this. They get like $200,000 fines, which for a multi-million-dollar bank executive is fucking nothing, right? So when it comes to a guy like Paul Manafort, he laundered money, did this and that. But did you know that they're holding Paul Manafort in solitary confinement? They're keeping him in solitary confinement in a jail for money laundering. Money laundering. Accusations, not even a conviction. So, I mean, I would imagine solitary confinement is probably the worst level of jail you can get. This is only from what I know, from what I learned from Orange is the New Black, The Hole. But, this is what I go to Alex for. Well, what's up with the Russian collusion? Okay. Oh, well, it turns out Russian collusion was this server farm in somewhere. I don't even know if it was in Russia. And turns out these people spent like a couple $100,000, I think even like $100,000. I think it was $122,000 on Facebook ads. That's how much this server farm spent in our 2016 elections. $116,000. Keep in mind that billions, that's with a B, like boy, billions millions of dollars are spent in the middle of elections. $122,000. You're telling me that this was what won Donald Trump the presidency in 2016? Not to mention that there was a lot of that work done that was even pro-Hillary. In fact, I think what I've heard is that there was more money spent from the quote-unquote Russian server farm to Facebook ads promoting the fucking Clinton campaign. Several of those women's marches and these anti-Trump marches were bought and paid for by these Russian server farms. So, what are we fucking talking about? Yeah, granted, Alex gets very extreme, right? He gets very extreme with some things. He does not like Muslims. I don't know if he doesn't like Muslims. He just does not like the religion of Islam. He makes sense because there's a lot of Islamic terrorism that happens around the world. There's also a lot of Christian terrorism in the form of military involvement. But Alex won't hold back. He'll call out the military-industrial complex. He was the first one who called out the deep state. He was the first one who said that your computers are spying on you, your phone's spying on you, your goddamn TV and your fucking refrigerators are spying on you, which that shit just came out last year, right? And there's some bombshell report about how all of your electronics are spying on you. Cambridge Analytica, they're fucking taking your data. Facebook, the all fucking powerful Facebook, and Google does this. Their whole job is to collect data and sell them to third parties so they can make ad money. How do you think they've become so big as companies? Because they collect more data on people than anybody could ever imagine, right? Alex Jones was the only person saying this years ago. He was talking about the NSA years before Edward Snowden came out. He's exposed Hillary Clinton, which the mainstream media will not acknowledge. Uranium One, selling, you talk about colluding with the Russians, talk about selling 20% of the United States uranium reserves to the fucking Russians. Granted, I don't know what you use uranium for. I think it's for like nuclear weapons, but I don't, this is not my specialty. And Alex Jones basically promoted that, okay? So the thing that they're pulling him off of these platforms for, though, is nothing that I just told you. It's not about the Russian collusion. It's not about the deep state exposures. It's not about the government spying on you. It's about Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook, this thing happened 5 years ago. And I mean, here's the thing. I have not heard the audio that these people in the mainstream keep talking about as being the reason why they pulled Alex Jones off the air or why they removed him off their platform. I haven't heard this anti-Sandy Hook, crisis actor thing they keep saying that he said, Again, I listen to Alex every single day. I have not heard this audio clip. I have not heard the actual physical proof you need that if you're going to, go to court and try to present this as a case for why you remove it. I haven't heard this audio. I haven't heard this proof, Yeah, I mean, again, the dude says some pretty crazy stuff, I haven't also heard, that whatever's making the frogs gay. Wouldn't put it by me. I mean, even after that shit comes out, the dude says things like that all the time because that's part of his personality. But, nobody is sitting here thinking like, oh man, the runoff from the plastics making the frogs gay. Although it might be making the frogs gay. I believe in a lot of respects that our excessive amount of hormones that we put in our food, the plastic that we're exposed to, the microwaves, the EFTs, the radiation, the phone cell towers, all this stuff, the Wi-Fi, I believe that's making the humans gay. Believe it's making the humans have a complete lack of the right hormones that the body needs. You have essentially a hormone crisis happening amongst people because of disruptions in people's thyroid, iodine, iron, calcium, magnesium. I mean, people aren't getting enough B vitamins. People are over coffeed, but, under nutrition. I mean, people are obese, yet they have no nutrient profile. They're not getting the right, essentially, molecules to build the blocks to keep themselves healthy. And yeah, it could be making us gay. It could be making us trans. It could be making us fucking, grow extra arms and eyeballs. I mean, who knows, right? But you can't talk about it because people will call you, a racist or a homophobe or a Nazi or whatever. This isn't me defending Alex saying the frogs are gay. I just think it's a complete non-starter. I think it's just such a stupid thing to focus on. You know what I mean? It's like sitting there and watching like NBC News, and then they have a car for a Jeep. Or, an advertisement for a commercial for like a Jeep. And this Jeep is like, they have these commercials where these Jeeps like, drive to the top of cliffs and they literally go over all these rocks or whatever. And then somebody gets in their Jeep and then, they try to do that same thing. And they're like, well, that's bullshit because I couldn't drive over the rocks like they did in the commercial. So you got to pull NBC off the air because they're promoting a product that doesn't work like the commercial said. They're just lying. Yeah, that's the shit they do in between the news. That's what Alex Jones does in the news. He fucking embellishes stuff for theatrics, but he does nail a lot of stuff, right? Again, I remember 5 years ago, this is a year after the Arab Spring, and I mean, we saw Egypt flip. We saw this just disaster in Yemen. We saw it in Libya. We saw it in all these, countries in the Middle East. And then Syria was kind of like this thing that we didn't really talk about because it just felt like that thing was getting worse and worse. And Alex Jones came on the air and he was like, the government wants to go into Syria. They want to drop bombs on the Syrians. They're trying to, Lindsey Graham and John McCain are moving nukes to Syria. And I still remember that vividly because that's when I just started listening to Alex. And I was like, Syria, what the hell does Syria have to do with anything? And then 5 years later, Syria is one of the biggest stories in the news because you're like, what the fuck is going on in Syria? Innocent people are dying every single day. We just keep dropping bombs after bombs after bombs. Who are the white helmets? What is Al-Qaeda doing? What is ISIS doing? We're still there. And he was the only one who would talk about it when this is back when, when we were too busy talking about Lamar Odom and Kim Kardashian and all this dumb shit. So I guess the overall point I'm just trying to get across in this podcast is it's frightening to me how platforms like Facebook and Google and YouTube will just pull a guy like Alex Jones off and they'll use some arbitrary thing like, oh, he's offending people from Sandy Hook. And then that's why they pull him off the air. 5 years after that happened, by the way, 5 years after that happened. And 5 years after whatever he said. They didn't pull him off because of Sandy Hook. They pulled him off because he was winning, which is amazing. I mean, he has a bigger listenership and viewership than all the mainstream media, than all the CNN. I mean, Anderson Cooper did a Facebook Live with 1,000 people. Anderson Cooper, CNN, that Facebook Live should have had tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, barely 1,000 people. They took him off the air because he sells health supplements. And say what you want about his health supplements. I don't, my own personal standing on health supplements, especially as I go through my nutritional therapy practitioner training, is it's a highly bio-individual thing. People just take supplements they buy from fucking Walmart and Costco. But yet Alex comes on and he's like, take, Triple Myco ZX or the red pill or, fish oil or MCT oil, exogenous ketones, whatever it is. And people all of a sudden now have a problem with supplements because Alex Jones is selling them. Do you know that in the US, supplements are not a regulated industry. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Tens of billions of dollars are spent on supplements every year, and there is no safety regulation required for them whatsoever. So no matter where you get your supplements from, there's tests you can do, not just on the supplement, but on the supplement's effect on you personally. And every supplement, no matter where it comes from, can be cast under scrutiny and can be basically labeled as witchcraft. But people are coming out saying that Alex Jones' supplements are far less, are far inferior to regular supplements. He's selling fucking snake oil, blah, 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 blah. What he's not doing is he's not selling pharmaceuticals like CNN does or CBS or NBC. I don't have a TV, but I will stream football games. And when I stream football games is when I get to see all of the goddamn pharmaceutical commercials that come on during football games. You know, did you know you had shaky leg syndrome? Well, now you do, and here's the pill to fix it. Did you know that you had? Did you know that your high blood pressure will lead you to die by the end of this football game? Not if you get this medication made by this pharmaceutical company. I guess the last thing I want to say is I don't see the point in banning Alex Jones off the platforms. Granted, I'm as free market, as capitalist as anybody. I totally get Facebook, YouTube, Google, Apple. They're their own companies. They're allowed to make decisions, whatever they want. You know, if they choose not to have a publisher on their platform, that is their decision. I totally get it. At the same time, clearly they've established each of these platforms, each of these companies as a platform to where if you have content, this is where it's going to be seen. Nobody's going to Bing. Nobody's going to some, homemade search engine. Nobody's, going to brand new social networks and in mass leaving Facebook, although I think sooner or later they're going to. So everybody should be able to have a voice on these platforms. And yet, because they're so afraid of the message that Alex Jones and InfoWars puts forth, they had to pull them off. And again, it makes no sense to me because if you are anti-InfoWars, if you are anti-Trump, if you are anti-libertarian or anti-Republican, doesn't it make more sense to let your enemies or to let your opposition just kind of talk themselves out of the standing? Doesn't it make more sense to let them present the argument that then you go and prove to be untrue? I don't understand this thing where it's like there's only one voice allowed. Not here in America. Not here in America. Maybe if you go to another country where that shit flies, maybe, yeah, that's called what, fascism? Or that's not socialism. I think it's fascism. I don't know what it is. But the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, this is the First Amendment in our goddamn Constitution. For a reason. Because the founders knew that you can't silence people, that doesn't bring anything good. It only brings bad. So the fact that you're going to silence a guy like Alex Jones, who, by the way, I really believe that if they go to court over all this, if all of these Sandy Hook people try to sue Alex Jones for defamation, I mean, they're just opening up a giant ball of worms. And any non-biased judge who isn't paid off by some corporate interest will probably take Alex Jones' side. Not that I think that what he did was, and I think this is why the mainstream doesn't like him, is he waived his some clause because he was getting sued by these people from Sandy Hook, and he waived some clause that said, there's like a clause that if you get sued and you win, you can then sue back the other people to basically recoup all of your legal funds and then sue them for a false lawsuit, which is an even higher crime than usually the crime that you're being sued for in the first place. And Alex Jones basically waived his right to do that. He said, I am so confident and I have so much empathy for these people who lost somebody in Sandy Hook that not only will I oblige and let them take me to court, but I know I'm going to win, and I'm going to not do that thing where I turn around and sue them for more money. And then the mainstream media basically, or I think he did sue them for more. It's some kind of crazy legal thing. Either way, the mainstream media spun it that Alex Jones is suing Sandy Hook parents, and it's just all wrong. It's just all wrong. So like as a holistic a-hole, the silencing of Alex Jones worries me because what this does is it makes me think now in the back of my head, what can't I talk about? Because I talk about a lot of anti-government stuff. I talk about a lot of anti-mainstream ideas. I talk about mental health, but in a not very mainstream mental health friendly way to discuss these things. If they start shutting people up, man, this is the beginning of the end right? This is, in my opinion, how we start diving further and further and further into conflict, because you can't just shut people up. You have to give people their platform. And if your message is stronger than the other message, then people will just hear that other message and say it's bullshit and go to you. You know, the mainstream, you have your fans. The CNN have your fans, right? They're the fucking weirdos, the non-gender, fucking pronoun people with the Nazi youth haircuts who go around, by the way, and call Jews and black people Nazis. Isn't that crazy? If you're a Jew or you're a black person and you wear a Make America Great Again hat, some fucking white privileged Nazi youth haircut wearing, parents paying their car insurance and their rent motherfucker will walk up to you and call you a white supremacist Nazi. Isn't that just bonkers? Isn't that just bonkers? This is why you need multiple sides of the story. This is why you can't just silence people. You have to hear the whole thing and make your own goddamn decisions, because let's face it, we're all Americans, we're all adults. Most of us. Some of us. Very few of us. Okay, that's the episode today. I'm curious what you think. What do you think about this? Where do you stand on this? This is a huge news story. So shoot me a tweet, shoot me an Instagram, shoot me a Facebook. Let me know what you think. All Holistic A-Hole. That's where you're going to find all that. Check out my YouTube channel, Holistic A-Hole YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. If you enjoy it, subscribe. That way you get this popping up in your feed every, or I should say twice a week, because the days are a little off, but usually Tuesday and Thursday. And if you enjoyed the episode, share it with people you love, share it on social media, and go ahead and take a binge for the episodes that you missed. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for listening. Peace.